Let's go to Dave Sharma now, the Liberal MP for the Sydney seat of Wentworth. He joins us from Canberra. Good to talk to you again, Dave. I'm wondering how someone like you, who's a modern Liberal representing a seat of Wentworth that is talked about as one of the climate change sensitive seats, how do you feel about your Prime Minister on the weekend trying to thrash out a deal with the Nats with their demands for a net zero policy?
Well, look, I'd say I think demands is the wrong way to put it. The Nats have got constituents, just like some of my rural Liberal colleagues have constituents who are worried about this, and they're right to have concerns and they're right to have anxieties, and it's important that those concerns and anxieties are addressed. And what I understand that the Nationals want to discuss with the government is, what steps will we put in place to protect communities that are going to be more exposed in a world where, high emissions intensive industries are less tolerated, less bankable, less financed, less export oriented. And that's a perfectly sensible discussion for them to be having. I mean, I know a lot of there's 28 Liberals that represent rural or regional electorates as well, and they've been having similar conversations with the Prime Minister as well. So, I don't really think it sounds like they're coming in with a list of demands and it's a big negotiation. It's not. It's a conversation about making sure that everyone is assured about the direction that we're heading in and that, the downside risks of this transition, which will be a big transition. Let's not pretend otherwise. The downside risks of this are going to be properly managed.
Let's have a listen to some of what the Nationals leader, Barnaby Joyce, has had to say.
Well, there's no action by Australia that's going to change the temperature of the globe at all. I mean, it's part of a sort of a global action plan, and but Australia by itself makes no difference whatsoever.
There's Barnaby Joyce making that obvious point that people can make time and time again, that nothing we do individually as a nation will change the global environment. It's about international action and being part of that. From that point of view, Dave Sharma, is it a mistake for Scott Morrison to always want to have a plan, a commitment in his pocket before he goes to Glasgow? Because you really don't know what's going to come out of the meeting when it comes to the major emitters. China's not even going, for instance. I don't think Russia will be there either.
Let me just start with the first part of that question, though. I mean, I understand the argument that people make there, but if we took that attitude, Australia would never have sent troops to the Dardanelles Peninsula in the First World War. We wouldn't have contributed to the war in Afghanistan. We wouldn't have been involved in the First Iraq War or the Second Iraq War.
I don't think that's a fair analogy, because when you made those commitments, there are others that were doing it. The point here is, what if others don't? At the moment, China is not doing anything. India is not doing anything. North America is not doing anything.
All these countries are signed up to the Paris Agreement already. That's already done.
Oh, yeah, they've promised to do stuff.
Commits all nations to net zero emissions in the second half of this century. So what we're talking about here is when. I mean, I accept the free rider argument, and if no one was doing anything about this, sure, but the world is doing stuff about this. I mean, the BCA is not a sort of left-wing woke organisation. The business groups, Rio Tinto, Woodside, BHP, these aren't left-wing woke cultural organisations progressing a social agenda here. They think that there's real money to be made in the transition to net zero. And for me, this is about our national interest, not missing out on that transition. I think this is the point that can get lost on people. Everyone says, oh, well, what difference will Australia make? Well, we will make a difference. Are we going to make a decisive difference? No, but that's been true of any number of our international involvements. But the point is here, there's a whole lot of opportunities for Australia in this new world. But if we want to unlock those, we need to be part of this journey now. We need to sign up to net zero. We need to say we accept our need to act. And then a whole lot of other stuff comes from that. Otherwise, I fear we're going to be isolated from our traditional security partners, our traditional strategic partners, our traditional economic and trading partners. And I don't think that's a place that Australia is going to fare well in if we're in that sort of geopolitical situation.
So you're confident a deal will be done and that the net zero promise will happen on Australia's behalf in Glasgow, regardless of what other countries do?
I'm not going to front run those. I accept they're difficult conversations and discussions, but I think there's a number of people now in the government and elsewhere who recognise, this isn't about virtue signalling. It's not about woke politics. It's about Australia's national interest ultimately, and that's something I take very seriously. And it's something that is true whether you're in the bush or you're in the cities. It's about where we're positioned in the world, the direction the world is going in, and how Australia can make sure that we're positioned to protect our interests and secure our future opportunities. And I think that recognition is there now in a way that it wasn't 4 or 5 years ago.
Dave Sharma, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Chris.
Liberal MP Dave Sharma there. When you have a look at what he's had to say as against what Matt Canavan's had to say, there's two ends of the argument there, perfectly summarised for you on this program today.